Breaking news. Ukraine shoots down 90 Russian drones. It is Sunday, February 2026, and the skies over Ukraine have just witnessed one of the most complex aerial assaults of the entire war.
Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports.
I'm Alex. Join me with Arya in the latest podcast by Defense Report for a sharp, no-nonsense breakdowns of the latest in global defense news, military technology, and strategic developments. And today we're going to cover a massive overnight assault on Ukraine that signals a terrifying shift in aerial warfare.
It really does.
We're talking about a foam fleet of decoys designed to bankrupt air defenses, a diplomatic energy truce that might be nothing more than a trap, and, this is the wild part, a secret high-tech war involving SpaceX and a literal speed limit in the sky.
It is a lot to unpack. We are seeing Russian weapons built out of, plywood and packing foam that are somehow terrorizing NATO standard air defenses.
It sounds unbelievable.
And then you have Elon Musk and the Ukrainian Defense Ministry basically flipping a digital switch to ground a fleet of Russian killers moving faster than 90 kilometers per hour.
And maybe the most futuristic, or, I don't know, maybe dystopian development of all, the gamification of the war. We are going to look at how Ukrainian drone operators are earning actual points for hits to buy better gear. It's like a real-life video game economy.
It sounds like science fiction, but this is the reality on the ground as of this morning.
So let's dive right in. The sirens were blaring overnight from January 31st into this morning, February 1st. Set the scene for us. What exactly happened in the skies over Ukraine last night?
It was a saturation attack, pure and simple. But the composition has changed significantly from what we saw even 6 months ago.
Okay.
The Russian Federation launched 90 distinct aerial vehicles. And they didn't just come from one launch pad. They used 5 different vectors: Orel, Kursk, Primorsko, Akhtarsk.
So they're swarming from all directions.
Basically swarming the radar coverage from every cardinal direction to, stretch the tracking algorithms to their breaking point.
90 drones. That is just a staggering volume for a single night. It feels like they're trying to break the system by sheer weight of numbers. How did the Ukrainian defenses hold up?
Incredibly well, statistically speaking. Ukraine's air defense forces neutralized 76 of those 90 drones.
Wow, 76 out of 90.
That is an 84.4% interception rate. And it's a testament to the mobile fire groups. These are the brave teams in pickup trucks with machine guns and searchlights, and the electronic warfare units that have been working nonstop. They're performing miracles, frankly.
That is an impressive number, almost 85%.
Yep.
I mean, doing the math, that means 14 got through.
Exactly. And that is the tragedy of these saturation attacks. An 84% success rate sounds like an A grade on a test, but in air defense, it means 14 impacts.
Right.
We saw strikes in Dnipro that killed 2 civilians, a man and a woman. There were hits on logistics facilities in Kyiv and infrastructure in Nikopol. The defense is holding, but the leakers, the ones that get through, are still deadly.
It really just underscores the difficulty of the job. You have to be perfect 100% of the time. The attacker only has to get lucky once. But the composition of this swarm is what really caught my eye in the reports. You said this wasn't just the standard Shahed drones we've been talking about for years.
No, this was a heterogeneous swarm. That's the new buzzword.
Yeah.
Out of those 90 drones, only about 60 were the Shaheds we know, the heavy hitters carrying 50 kilograms of explosives. But the rest, they were these new, strange drones like the Gerbera and the Atalmas.
Right. The reports are mentioning Gerberas. Now, a Gerbera is a flower. It sounds harmless. Why are military analysts so worried about a flower?
Because this flower is designed to bankrupt the defense. The Gerbera is terrifying specifically because of its economics.
Okay.
We're looking at a drone made of polystyrene foam and plywood.
Wait, let me stop you there. You mean styrofoam, like the stuff cheap coolers or coffee cups are made of?
Essentially, yes. High-density industrial foam wrapped around a plywood frame. It is incredibly low-tech. We're talking about a drone that costs maybe $10,000 to build.
$10,000.
And it uses a cheap Chinese engine, the DLE-60, which you can literally buy online for hobby aircraft for about $450 right now.
Okay, so Russia is launching hobby planes made of foam. Why is that a strategic threat? It sounds like they are scraping the bottom of the barrel. It sounds desperate.
It looks that way, but it's actually a highly calculated, cynical strategy. It's what we call decoy doctrine.
Okay.
Radar systems struggle to differentiate between a Shahed, which is a flying bomb, and a Gerbera, which might just be a flying block of foam. So if you're a Ukrainian air defense operator, you have seconds to decide. If you fire a high-end missile like an AIM-9X or an IRIS-T, that costs anywhere from $500,000 to $2 million.
You just spent $2 million to blow up $10,000 worth of foam and plywood. That is a terrible trade.
Precisely. And if you do that 10 times a night, you run out of missiles long before Russia runs out of foam. It's economic attrition. They're trying to force Ukraine to expend its most valuable, limited resource interceptor missiles on targets that hold almost zero strategic value.
It's a financial siege.
It's a way to disarm the enemy without actually hitting them.
But here's the kicker from the reports. The Gerbera isn't just a decoy, right? It's not just a flying brick, because if it was just a brick, maybe you could ignore it.
No, and that's the nasty surprise.
Yeah.
There are 3 variants. One is the pure decoy, just flying to die and distract. But the second version is a recon model.
A recon model.
It's equipped with a Tokatek camera and a 4G modem using Ukrainian mobile networks to stream video back to the operators.
So it's spying on the air defense positions while it's being shot at.
Correct. It forces the air defense to reveal its location by firing, streams that location data back, and then gets shot down.
Yeah.
And the third version is a kamikaze variant.
Of course.
It carries a small warhead, maybe 5 kilograms. It's not enough to level a building like a Shahed, but it's absolutely enough to destroy a radar station, a parked jet, or a fuel truck. So the defenders can't just ignore them.
That puts the operator in an impossible bind. You have to shoot it down because it might be a bomb or a spy, but every time you do, you are likely falling into an economic trap. You also mentioned the Atalmas. Is that similar?
Similar concept, different execution. The Atalmas, or Product 54, is nicknamed the lawnmower.
Because of the sound?
Yes, the engine has a very distinct, annoying buzz. But the danger of the Atalmas is its flight profile. It flies extremely low to the ground, hugging the terrain.
So it's trying to hide from radar.
Exactly. It's designed to slip through the gaps in radar coverage, while the air defense systems are busy looking up at the foam Gerberas. It's all about layering high-altitude decoys, low-altitude movers, and heavy strikers, all mixed together to create chaos.
It seems like the strategy is shifting from pure power to sheer volume and deception. But there is another piece of tech news that dropped this week that feels straight out of a cyberpunk novel. We have reports that some of these Russian drones were found with Starlink terminals strapped to them.
This is the Starlink crisis, and honestly, it is arguably the most significant technological escalation we've seen this winter. We know Starlink provides high-speed, low-latency internet anywhere on Earth via satellite.
Right.
For a long time, it has been the backbone of Ukraine's defense communications. It's how the good guys talk to each other.
Right, it's what keeps the Ukrainian units connected, but now the Russians are using it. That feels like a violation of the terms of service, to put it mildly.
Exactly. Russian engineers figured out how to strap Starlink mini-terminals onto their long-range drones, like the Molnia and even modified Shaheds. This gives them a hardened, high-bandwidth control link.
Why does that matter so much? Don't they have radio control already? Why do they need Elon Musk's satellites?
Because traditional radio links are limited by line of sight and are extremely susceptible to jamming. To jam a radio, you just blast noise on that frequency.
Sure.
But Starlink uses narrow, directional beams up to satellites in orbit. It's incredibly hard to jam from the ground unless you're standing right next to the terminal.
So this allows them to fly these drones deep into the rear without losing the signal.
With terrifying accuracy. We're talking operational depths of 25 to 100 kilometers or more behind the front lines.
Yeah.
With Starlink, an operator in Russia can manually steer the drone in real time, watching a high-definition video feed all the way to impact.
They can change targets mid-flight. They can chase moving vehicles.
It changes the drone from a fire-and-forget missile into a guided hunter. It's a massive capability jump.
And we saw the consequences.
We did. There was a tragic incident just on January 27th where a drone, believed to be equipped with Starlink, struck a passenger train in the Kyiv region. It killed civilians. That seems to have been the tipping point that forced a reaction.
Because that level of precision capability in the hands of an aggressor using a U.S. company's tech, that's a massive problem for sanctions and PR. But there's breaking news on this front. Something about a speed limit.
Yes, and this is where the story gets really fascinating technologically. Ukraine's defense minister, Mikhailo Fedorov, who has a direct line to SpaceX leadership, reached out immediately. He essentially said, this has to stop.
And SpaceX responded?
Very quickly, they implemented a geospatial speed limit.
Okay, let's unpack this because it sounds bizarre. A speed limit in space internet.
Basically, yes. SpaceX pushed a firmware update to the terminals operating in that specific region. The software now monitors the terminal's telemetry. If a Starlink terminal detects that it's moving faster than roughly 75 to 90 kilometers per hour, that's about 56 miles per hour, the signal just cuts out.
It just stops.
You get an error message, movement speed is too high.
That is incredibly clever. Because a tank or a soldier isn't moving that fast?
Precisely. Most ground vehicles, even in combat, aren't sustaining 100 kilometers per hour. And certainly infantry aren't running that fast. But a Shahed, a Molniya, a fixed-wing strike drone.
They're all going much faster.
They almost always cruise faster than 100 kilometers per hour just to maintain lift and reach their targets.
So the moment the drone hits cruising speed, the internet cuts out.
The Starlink goes dark, the drone goes blind, the operator loses the video feed and control. It effectively neutralizes the advantage of using the satellite link for fixed-wing strikes. It turns the smart drone back into a dumb brick.
That sounds like a perfect fix. Does it solve the problem permanently?
It's a tourniquet, not a cure. It stops the immediate bleeding, but, military analysts are warning that Russian engineers are already working on workarounds.
Of course they are.
You have to remember the terminal knows its speed because it has a GPS chip inside.
Ah, I see where this is going. If you can lie to the terminal.
Right. They're trying to build proxy boards to spoof the GPS data fed into the terminal. Basically, they want to trick the Starlink into thinking it's sitting still or moving slowly when it's actually flying at 150 kph. It's a battle of engineers now.
So it's a cat and mouse game. Software patch versus hardware hack.
Always. And there's another massive complication for Ukraine.
Which is?
Ukraine uses fast drones, too. They have heavy bomber drones and long-range interceptors that need that connection. So now there's a frantic effort to create a whitelist, a database of approved Ukrainian terminals that are allowed to break the speed limit.
That sounds like a logistical nightmare.
It is. You have to register specific serial numbers for every single drone in a fleet that changes daily due to combat losses and new production. It's a massive administrative headache in the middle of a war, but it's necessary to keep their own birds in the air while grounding the Russian.
It really highlights how much modern warfare relies on software updates as much as ammunition. Speaking of things that are fragile and rely on complex systems, let's talk about the energy grid. There was a lot of diplomatic noise this week about an energy truce. President Trump reportedly asked Putin for a moratorium on strikes. What actually happened there?
This is where politics and physics collide. Yes, there were reports circulating that President Trump asked Putin to hold off on striking energy targets in Kyiv until February 1st, supposedly to foster a better environment for negotiations.
Okay, and looking at the strike data we discussed earlier, the 90 drones, did they hit the power plants?
Technically, no. Russia did not hit power generation plants last night. They hammered the logistics hubs and warehouses in Kharkiv instead. And notably, Ukraine reciprocated by not striking Russian oil refineries overnight. So on the surface, the truce held for a day.
But here's the confusing part. I'm reading reports that despite no missiles hitting the plants, the lights still went out in Kyiv today.
Why? Because the grid is hanging by a thread. You don't need a missile to break it anymore. We saw a disconnection of the 400-kilowatt high-voltage line connecting Ukraine to Moldova and Romania this morning.
And the reason?
The official reason was technological disruptions.
Technological disruptions. That sounds like code for it just broke.
It essentially is. The system has been battered for 4 years. Transformers have been patched and repaired a dozen times. The redundancy is gone. It's so fragile that even without a missile impact, simple load imbalances or frequency fluctuations are causing cascading failures.
That is terrifying. It means the infrastructure is degrading on its own entropy.
It is. The UN just released their 2026 plan requesting $2.31 billion solely for this, noting that winter is freezing and the power is unstable. It's a humanitarian crisis that doesn't need a fresh missile to be deadly. The grid is brittle.
It's a sobering reality. The war doesn't stop just because politicians are talking.
And speaking of the war not stopping, I want to pivot from the high-level politics to the front lines. We talked about the high-tech satellite war, but down in the trenches, there's something happening that you call the gamification of war. What does that mean?
It sounds trivial, but it's a sophisticated supply chain innovation. We know that 80% of all enemy targets are now destroyed by drones. That's a massive shift from artillery.
Right.
To keep up with this, the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense has implemented a system called Army of Drones.
And this involves actual points, like a score.
Literally electronic points. Here's how it works.
Yeah.
When a unit verifies a drone hit on a Russian tank or personnel with clear video evidence, they upload it. Once verified, the unit is awarded points in the system.
Okay.
They can then spend these points in a digital marketplace called Brave One.
It's like a loyalty rewards program, but for combat. That sounds almost surreal. In a way, yes. But instead of a toaster or air miles, they're buying more drones, better electronic warfare gear, or new antennas.
That actually sounds incredibly efficient. Instead of waiting for HQ to send you what they think you need, you earn what you know you need.
Exactly. It cuts out the bureaucracy. Usually, requesting new gear takes weeks of paperwork. Here, if you're effective, you get more resources immediately. It incentivizes accuracy and documentation. It essentially gamifies the supply chain to make it faster and more responsive.
That speeds up the OD loop, observe, orient, decide, act. It's a very modern, very Ukrainian solution. But while Ukraine is innovating with point systems and marketplaces, what is the situation with the Russian infantry? You mentioned weather playing a huge role right now.
Yes. In the eastern sectors, particularly near Lyman and the Serebranska forest, the tactics are getting very gritty and very old school. Russian forces are using the weather as cover.
How so?
When snowstorms hit, or there's heavy fog, the thermal cameras on Ukrainian drones don't work as well.
So the drones are grounded.
Or just blinded. Snow scatters the thermal signature. Russian infantry are adapting by using white snowsuits and special thermal cloaks, ponchos, lined with foil to mask their heat signatures. They wait for a blizzard, then infiltrate in small groups, crawling through the snow to get into the trenches before the drones can spot them.
It's an incredible contrast. On one hand, we have Starlink satellites, speed limits, and gamified supply chains. On the other, we have men in snowsuits crawling through a forest in a blizzard, fighting hand-to-hand.
That is the paradox of this war in 2026. It is hyper-modern and archaic at the same time. You have algorithms in space determining if a drone can fly, while on the ground, the outcome is decided by who freezes first.
So to recap this deep dive, the picture is complex. We have a massive aerial assault involving foam fleets designed to exhaust expensive missile stocks through economic attrition.
Right.
We have a satellite internet war being fought with software updates and speed limits to stop deep strike drones. And we have a power grid that is breaking under the strain even when the missiles aren't flying.
And we're seeing that resilience isn't just about having the best weapons. It's about adaptation. Whether it's coding a whitelist for satellites or building a foam plane to trick a radar, the side that adapts the fastest and cheapest is the side that survives.
Here is a thought to leave you with. We talked about how SpaceX implemented that speed limit to stop the drones. It worked this time. It was a win for Ukraine. But think about the precedent that sets. The defense of a sovereign nation relied on a private company in another country pushing a software update.
It is a precarious position to be in.
Exactly. What happens when the next update comes too late? Or what happens when the enemy learns to fly their drones at 74 kilometers per hour, just under the speed limit?
That is the question keeping defense analysts awake at night. The line between corporate policy and national security has never been blurrier, and we are watching it get erased in real time.
You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex Anaria, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry.
Side A. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.